Hello guys, and welcome to another video by the International Full Soap Timeline. I haven't made one for quite a while for various reasons: holiday, health, other projects, but I feel it's time to make another one. I was going to do Dark Blue Yonder Part 2, but this is about trawling and witch hunts ad infinitum, because this historical garbage is really getting on my nerves. The inspiration for this, if you can call it that, is that there's a guy named Jared Leto, or Leto, who has been accused by multiple women of, you know what, this is very interesting and more than a little sinister. This is from the BBC website on August the 7th, 2026. Campaigners call for Jared Leto's concerts to be cancelled after criminal sexual conduct claims. The musician, who strongly denies the claims, is currently scheduled to perform with his band in two of the UK's biggest arenas next April. This is written by two women. Warning: contains graphic details of alleged sexual offences and misconduct, as well as strong language. Now here's the punchline. A BBC investigation published last week heard from 4 women who have accused the US musician and actor of behaviour which includes sexual assault and grooming. A BBC investigation. Where have we heard that before? These so-called investigations, there's one of Russell Brand, which has led to him being charged with rape. There's a DJ who's charged recently with offences, all historical. No police report initially. These so-called investigators, campaigning investigative journalists, or whatever you want to call them, they go out and they trawl for victims. And well, think about this. I'd never heard of this guy. He's obviously got quite a following. As I said before, there are millions and millions of people out there who are prepared to make allegations against people in the public eye. With men, it will be either financial corruption or allegations of sexual impropriety. With women, it will be financial corruption or whoring themselves, basically. And this is, I don't know, I mean, this article. The alleged offences took place in the 2000s and 2010s, when the women were teenagers and Leto was in his 30s and 40s. He's now 54. The End Violence Against Women Coalition and domestic abuse charity Women's Aid have told BBC Newsbeat they have concerns about the upcoming events in London and Manchester. How about concerns about these sort of allegations instead? I mean, no. We've seen this so many times, and people fall for it time and time again. Here's one here. She said she was invited to an after party by Leto's female assistant, and although she was 19 at the time, she says to protect herself, she felt the need to pretend to be younger when she met Leto. Is it Leto or Leto? L-E-T-O. She said she told him she was 17, and Leto, then 41, replied, "Age is just a number, and anyway we're in Europe." And she went to another party with him. When she asked Leto if she could sleep on a chaise lounge in the room, Alex says the star responded by saying that if she did, she would wake up with a dick in her ass. I mean, seriously? In total, 10 women have spoken to the BBC documentary, with 9 of them sharing their stories publicly for the first time. Yeah. This is outrageous, this sort of garbage. Just as recently, another former musician this time has been charged. Gary Glitter, who's an easy target. He was convicted as part of the Operation Yewtree witch hunt. I've looked at the allegations made against him there, and I don't believe any of them. I think this is payback for what he was doing in the Far East, where he definitely was doing things he shouldn't have been doing. This is from a decade or more ago, from Operation Yewtree. If you can hear trains going by in the background, there's not a lot I can do about that. I've got the window mostly closed. It's still summer, you know. This is from the BBC website, January 21st, 2015. A woman who claims Gary Glitter tried to rape her as a child has denied lying about the alleged attack, saying she remembers it as if it were yesterday. As if he couldn't have raped her if he tried. But this is what's interesting. This was meant to have happened in 1975, so this is like 40 years on. The woman had previously told jurors she remembered a particular room in the basement of the house where she was allegedly attacked. After being shown a plan of the property, she agreed this could not have been the case, as there was no basement. During re-examination by prosecutor John Price QC, the jury was told that in early police statements, the woman said she may have been unsure about the dates. Yeah. When he asked her why she decided to make the allegations after Mr. Paul Gadd, Gary Glitter, was charged with child pornography offences in 1998, she said, because I wanted to face him for what he did, and I also wanted, I hope that other people would also, not really well worded that, but I wanted them to know that there was more than he did, apart from what he had been charged with. All these head cases are like this. But he was convicted of that, you know. On April 1st, 2025, April Fool's Day, the same website reported that convicted sex offender Gary Glitter has been declared bankrupt after failing to pay more than £500,000 to a woman he abused when she was 12, her lawyers have said. This is the third time he went bankrupt, actually. The disgraced pop star, whose real name is Paul Gadd, just in case you didn't know, was convicted of abusing a woman between 1975 and 1980, as well as 2 other young people, and was last year ordered to pay the victim damages of £508,800. The sum included £381,000 in lost earnings and £7,800 for future therapy and treatment. I mean, this is like a so-called attempted rape, you know? And the woman who can't be named for legal reasons put a compensation claim against Gadd. The High Court heard she'd been unable to work for decades due to the abuse and has suffered lifelong mental scarring. What a load of garbage. Again, there are many testimonies of women who've actually been raped, some quite viciously and horribly, and they don't sound like this at all. There's a remarkable woman, Kelley Hollingbrook. She was raped at the age of 16 by a total monster, a bloke named Toby Grego. And it's a bit complicated, but he was convicted of, I think, raping 4 women. He was serving a sentence when he was charged with raping her as well, and he was given 9 years on top, which for what he did, I think 9 years is very insufficient. Then he was paroled. Obviously, he shouldn't have been paroled, but paroled for, convicted for, then 5 rapes. I mean, that's a life sentence, it should be. He was paroled and he moved to Montana. He was based in New Mexico, that way. and he committed another series of rapes, horrible rapes, and she was brought in at the penalty phase to testify, and she was amazing. And she only broke down when, I mean, she wasn't concerned about herself. That she blamed herself for him raping these other women. I didn't do enough at that time, I think 1997 or something like that. And she was amazing. And lots of women who've been raped. Cara Robinson, I think I mentioned her before. She was kidnapped by a serial killer when she was 15, raped repeatedly overnight, and she managed to break away from him. And it was like water off a duck's back, you know? Almost all these women who've really suffered, I mean, unambiguously suffered. It's, what's that saying? That which does not destroy me makes me stronger. But this pathetic woman, she'd been able to work for decades to get the abuse. Oh, give me a break. She said, oh, this is a judge. She said she was satisfied the woman had not been able to find any meaningful employment for her life. Yeah, fucking head case. Cars as well as trains. I usually make this video at 2 AM when it's not so noisy. But the latest, well, one of the latest on Gag List, and is again from the BBC website by Lizo Mzimba. Gary Glitter, a former singer whose real name is Paul Gadd, just in case you didn't know, has appeared in court charged with 4 historical sex offences dating back to 1978. He appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court via video link from prison. He was remanded in custody, told to appear on September 2nd at the Old Bailey, either by video link or in person. The charges relate to 1 count of unlawful sexual intercourse with a girl under the age of 13 and 3 counts of indecent assault on a girl under the age of 14. There is 1 alleged victim with the offences said to have taken place between the years 1978 to 81 at a residential address in Kensington. The allegations were first reported to the Metropolitan Police on the 9th of January 2025, and the investigation into the circumstances was launched. I might actually write to Glitter and give him some advice about fighting. I obviously want to keep him in prison until he dies. He's 82 now. I've got no sympathy for the guy, but this is ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. Glitter was part of the Operation Yewtree witch hunt. Briefly, what happened was in 2009, it was 2 years before Jimmy Savile's death, a gaggle of demented hags who had been at Duncroft School in the 1970s conspired openly over social media to make allegations against him of abusing them at Duncroft. I'll put a link to my video, The Truth About Jimmy Savile. And there's also a couple of websites. There's one website in particular, a blog, Jim Cannot Fix This, which goes over this in depth. Surrey police travelled to Stoke Mandeville and questioned Savile under caution. He debunked all their allegations. Totally debunked them. After his death, these allegations were resurrected, including by a scumbag man named Mark Williams Thomas. And initially the BBC resisted, you know, they screened a tribute or published a tribute to him. But all these allegations came out. The women who make them, not right in the head. One person did, I forget it was, did an investigation of her, and they found she had things like FBI membership badges or warrant cards, or something ludicrous like that. And then there was a matter of a letter which said Savile hadn't been prosecuted because he was too old and infirm. That was all garbage. And they resurrected this, and because they couldn't prosecute Savile, they went after for that celebrities, the men who'd entertained us for the previous half century. The biggest casualty was Rolf Harris. What I did to him was outrageous. I'll put a link to my Rolf Harris website, and also to the video I made about the way they stitched him up. They really let the cat out of the bag with Cliff Richard. I'll just play a video now. Just video, no sound. What happened there was that because he's widely and erroneously believed to be homosexual, his main accuser was a dude who claimed that back in the 1980s Richard had flashed him or something at a Christian revival festival, Billy Graham. Richard's a born again Christian, something like that. Christian anyway. It came to nothing because he, being a celebrity, a big celebrity even in the 80s, he walked around with an escort of bodyguards. But what they did was they searched one of his premises. He's got homes all over the place. I think he's got at least 3, one in West Indies, one in Portugal. They made sure he was out of the country, and they searched his home. And they took out some computer equipment to make it look like he'd been downloading child porn or something. And they put a camera in the sky. The police tipped off the BBC, and they filmed it. And as I've said before, I'll put a link to my article, The Cliff Richard Outrage. This was an open invitation to every crank in the world, literally in the world, because he'd done a lot of touring. Every crank in the world to make false allegations against him. He was also said to have frequented Elm Guest House, which is bunk. Richard is actually on the Elm Guest House list. I'll put a link to an article about that below. Even Wikipedia acknowledges this is a fake. Well, it's just made up. And that was to incite these cranks to make false allegations against him. Fortunately, there were a number of made allegations, but none of them were considered credible. But they destroyed Rolf Harris. David Lee Travis, what they did to him was outrageous. What they tried to do to others. I mean, there were some genuine ones. There was Chris Denning, who was a homo, who had a long history of including abroad, Poland, I think it was, abusing boys. The only real surprise was the guy who did It's a Knockout. That's this bloke, Stuart Hall. But even he was acquitted of all the major offences. It's absolutely outrageous. And they keep doing this. They keep doing it. Right, I mentioned Graham Plattner. That's this guy. Plattner is or was, perhaps still is, an American politician, Democrat. And they didn't want him to run. They've considered a liability or he'd lose. And surprise, surprise, out of thin air he was accused of sexual abuse. One allegation, then another. It's no police report. I actually made a video about this case called No Police Report, No Rape. I'll put a link to that. And there's even another comedian in Britain, Hardeep Singh Kohli. I've heard of him very vaguely. He's a Sikh, as you might expect from a name like that, so-called comedian, and he's been charged with all sorts of offences. There may be some truth to it. A lot of these cases, there can be banter, or maybe like men and women doing what men and women do in show business, or what they used to do, you know, touchy-feely stuff and faffing around, and years later this becomes something very sinister. Absolutely outrageous. The bloke I mentioned earlier, DJ, is a guy named Tim Westwood. In November last year, again I'm reading from the BBC website, ex-BBC Radio 1 and former Capital Extra Capital Extra, I presume it's a radio station, Capital Radio, DJ Tim Westwood has appeared in court for his first hearing since being charged with 4 counts of rape last month, going back to the 1990s. From 1983 to 2016. The charges relate to 7 women, some as young as 17 years old. I gather they're all black. So I can't accuse him of racism, or perhaps I will. Between 1995 and 1996, a female between the ages of 17 and 18 was allegedly raped in London. It also alleged the same woman was initially assaulted in central London within the same time frame. She hated it so much she went back for more. I mean, just ludicrous. 2010, a woman in her 20s was allegedly raped in London. 2010, a woman in her 20s was allegedly sexually assaulted in Stroud. Absolutely ludicrous. How do you defend against these sort of allegations? You don't, you know? And if your name is Gary Gliss, it doesn't matter if the woman claims you tried to rape her in the basement of a house that had no basement. So this is, you know, we've seen these trolls. The worst one, of course, was Bill Cosby. Again, I'll put a link to my video about Bill Cosby, my documentary about Bill Cosby, the way he's fitted up by Gloria Allred, and the way the media ignored it all. Well, that's not quite true, though. They were dismissive until there were so many women, and 1 or 2 black women accused him. But Gloria Allred, no action's been taken against her. She was involved in an attempt to frame Judge Roy Moore for the same sort of thing, using a forged document, a false instrument, and no action taken against her. Cunt. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. This is trawling ad infinitum. Trawling and witch hunts ad infinitum. You know, whenever you hear of these, don't give them any credit. No police report, no rape. And if it's the BBC or the Guardian or Channel 4 goes looking for allegations, they'll find allegations. There have been cases in which they paid people. A certain Mr. Robinson has documented that. I won't say any more about him here. But they pay people, and there's fantasists and women who are seriously not right in the head, and others are just in it for the money. Anyway, that's the latest hangout from the International Full Soap Timeline. Hopefully there won't be such a late for the next one, which will hopefully be Dark Blue Yonder video number 2, episode number 2.